Welcome back to the channel. You know what? I'm not afraid to give you my recommendations up front in the beginning of this video and then hope that you stay tuned to see if you like my justifications why I gave it those ratings. So today, going to go ahead and actually take a look at Back in Action on Netflix. Now, if you are a target audience member, meaning that you are about action comedy, you like spy movies, you're a fan of Jamie Foxx and or Cameron Diaz, I'm going to go ahead and actually suggest that you add this to the playlist to go ahead and actually watch when you have nothing else to watch. So it's not a must watch. It's not a, I have to absolutely watch it, but put it to that playlist and watch it at your leisure. Now, if you're a casual viewer, you're not a fan of either one of those actors or actresses, you're not specifically into the action comedy, all that kind of stuff, you're just kind of going to just scrolling on by, see if this is worth your time. This is what I would call a background movie for you. You're just going to actually put it on the background. Sometimes you'll see something that you like. Most of the time, you're just going to go on about your day. So, those are my recommendations. Now, stay tuned, and I'll tell you how I came up with those recommendations.
What is going on?
We were operatives for the CIA.
Like Jason Bourne?
Yeah, but we remember stuff.
Yeah.
Back in Action is an action spy comedy that premiered on Netflix in January of 2025. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes, and it stars Jamie Foxx as Matt, Cameron Diaz as Emily, with notable Glenn Close as Jenny. The synopsis that we have for this particular film: former CIA spies Emily and Matt are pulled into espionage after their secret identities are exposed. So when I go ahead and actually look at something of that nature, I have a story, I've got all that in my mind. Now I need to go ahead and actually figure out, am I the target audience? When I go and actually give those recommendations of target and casual, you need to know who the heck I am. Am I the target audience? Well, I like the spy genre movies. I am a Jason Bourne fan. I like that type of deal in there. Not as much as, like, say, like a James Bond fan or anything like that, but I like the spy things, like what that brings to it. Most of those movies I'm about. Action comedy, I like the genre. Buddy cop types of things in there, or something where you go and actually go from action, a little bit of comedy, get a little bit of character development. Your most classic is like Lethal Weapon for that type of deal. And I like that genre for the most part. Jamie Foxx, I'm a fan of most of his movies, whether you're talking about Django or you're talking about the very underrated, whether you're talking about Django, whether you're talking about Ray, They Clone Tyrone. These are roles that I've seen him in. There's plenty of other ones on there. He's a very good actor. Love him, especially when he's allowed to go and actually have between his mix of comedy and action. Really good. I'm a fan. Cameron Diaz, I've liked most of her movies. There's some that really stick out for me. I like her in Charlie's Angels; those are hilarious. I loved her in Mask. Not as much of a fan of her like there was like Vanilla Sky back in the day. She was definitely funny in There's Something About Mary, all that kind of good stuff, right? So for the most part, she's kind of half and half for me, whatever. And so when I go and actually add this all up of the genres, the actors in this, I'm going to go and actually say I'm the target audience for this. I'm somebody that I should be giving main character energy for this type of film. Okay. And the reason why you need to go and actually know that is you should always know the bias of your reviewers before you go ahead and actually take into their recommendations. See where I'm going with that? Yeah, I thought you might. So if you like how that sounds, do me a favor, click like, share, subscribe. And now let me deep dive into this review. Now, when you go ahead and actually see Back in Action come up, you go ahead and actually figure out what kind of movies is this kind of tailoring off of. Is it kind of like a James Bond? Is it like Bourne Identity? What am I looking at here? Some of the films that you would go ahead and actually say this is either inspired by, or it has some commonalities with, or there's a lot of beat for beat types of things on there that you can really vibe with. It'll be like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Spy Kids, True Lies, Night and Day, Fubar. There's different elements in any of those content that if you watch this series, you would go and actually say, I see why that might be something that was inspired by, or you've seen some things that were largely taken out of there. And those are the ones that go and actually come up that you go and actually get some very similar types of ideas or what have you about. When I look at something like storytelling, I look for, is it unique? Is there something, the premise for it or anything like that? There's nothing unique here, okay? If you've seen any movie about a retired spy trying to keep their identity secret, or you try to keep it away from their family or anything like that, that's what this genre is all about. So there's nothing compelling or new laying the ground on here. The biggest plus for this movie is that they keep everything moving, meaning that it is fast paced. They get to one scene, they get to another. They really want to go ahead and actually advance it so that we're not spending too much time on anything. We're not spending too much time dwelling on the story, the plot, character, or anything like that. It's meant to get to your next set action piece so that we can continue to go on with the action part of this action comedy. So, in regards to pacing, very good. And good as far as making me care about the people in this film, not so much. The plot holes and the lack of character development really make this film, for me, it's hollow and forgettable. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not entertaining. It means that it's just not something I'm going to remember a month or two from now. Like what they really kind of lean into in this particular series, or what they lean into this particular movie, are the action scenes, which are sometimes fun, but mostly they're average. They also lean into their comedic lines, which some of them did have me smiling or have me laughing a little bit, but it's not like any of the lines really stood out for me that I'd be trying to go ahead and actually say like, oh man, what's that one line that came from Back in Action? It's not that funny or anything like that. There's also a type of thing that they went and actually mixed into, like the Gen X thing of their main two stars of being Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx, where they were kind of lean into them being a Gen Xer, their age, them being parents, their taste of music, all that kind of stuff, right? And as a Gen Xer myself, I appreciated that. Like there's a scene of them getting ready to fight in a nightclub that was, I think, kind of like one of the highlights for me. And I want to say this was probably in the first act or so. And I really liked that scene because music choice, the dialogue, everything fit for what they were trying to do. Liked it.
Is the cable broken? Is that why you boomers are out this late?
Boomers.
Yes, Karen. Boomers.
We're not boomers, okay? We're Gen X, if anything. Let's go, let's get out.
But then there's other times where it gets to be a little much, where the music choice is weird or leaning too heavy into the characters and who they represent. It just became like a little much. And that one's a little bit harder to describe, but there's just times where it just seemed like, they're continuing to remind me that, they're parents, they're Gen Xers, they're this, they're that. And so some of it just became like, okay, you're trying too hard, stop it. And again, it's not that anything was bad or horrible. It's the worst thing about it is that it wasn't memorable. And so from a storytelling aspects of things, it just wasn't great. So for storytelling in this particular film, I'm going to go and actually give it like a C+. Now, for acting, again, like I told you, I like Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz, especially as like a separate actors. I really do. I think it's really great. Their chemistry wasn't as believable for me as a couple, but oddly enough, they were believable as parents. And so that aspect of it, of their acting, I think was great once they became, that whole parent thing or whatever. That worked for me better than, them and their individual relationships. I think both of them really got a chance to improvise some dialogue in this film. It just seems like they were having fun kind of riffing and doing some either references or songs or making some quips and things of that nature. And I think they had fun making this film. That's what I kind of got from it overall.
Take a look in the mirror, say what's up.
Another person I really think enjoyed their time on this film is Glenn Close. I could be wrong, but I think that she really was playing up her part. I don't want to. I think in a trailer it kind of spoils it, but I don't want to spoil it in there. But her role in this is actually a pivotal one, and I liked her role in this, and she seemed to be enjoying what she was doing, kind of being a little bit badass and things like that on there. So I liked that aspect of it as well.
We're gonna fix all that.
The rest of the supporting cast was fine. McKenna Roberts and Ryland Jackson play the children for Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz's characters, and for the most part, they did a pretty good job. They were trying to act out the whole little teen angst, the embarrassment, struggles with their parents and their relationship, and find out they're spies and all that kind of stuff. And so I think they did a pretty good job with that. I won't say that it was like totally phenomenal, but it was a decent job on there. I don't have any problem with the kids. I think another standout in the acting was as Jamie Demetrio, something of that nature. My enunciation is horrible. As Nigel, His scenes in there for the most part were fun. He had a lot. You could just tell that he was having fun, like just doing random stuff on there. So I can appreciate that. So for acting in this particular series, I'm going to go and actually give it a solid B. My closing thoughts on this particular film is that overall, this is a movie that I could have seen coming out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, would have made somewhere around about 90 to 140 million dollars, would have been profitable for the studio, and they'd have gone about their way. Everything had been fine. It would have come to DVD. It'd have been a bargain bin DVD because nobody would have really remembered it. Nobody would have cared about it that much. It's one of those types of action comedy things, meaning that it entertained me for what it was. A few weekends, you get a little bit of word of mouth because it's got Fox and Diaz and Close in there, that hey, people will go and actually see it, but ultimately it becomes forgettable. And that's kind of like where it was at. If you're really looking for something that, if you are a casual viewer and you're like, all right, if I want something that's like a action comedy family type of thing, or even just a couples type of thing or anything like that, I would probably go and actually suggest watching True Lies or Mr. and Mrs. Smith before you go ahead and actually get all the way down to Back in Action. Those are going to be some better quality films for you to do as a casual. For main target audience members, you've seen all those before. Are you thinking about watching Back in Casual? I say add it to that playlist. It's just one that you don't have to immediately go and watch right away on there. It may have some things in there that you might go and actually really vibe with, especially some of the acting, and they seem to have fun on this particular film. But there you go. Those are my thoughts for Back in Action on Netflix. Check it out. I appreciate you staying for the entire review. I do. Do me a favor. If you liked anything in this review, you can go and actually click like. That'll be the best thing. Second best thing is to go ahead and actually share this with somebody else that you might think. And then if you really want to do the trifecta for me, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to go ahead and actually get up to 500. Really want to go ahead and actually hit that mark. But if you don't like this, go ahead and actually leave some comments below. Let me know if you think that you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. I can respect that. I'm cool with feedback. But maybe I just need to convince you with one more review, and you can watch this review right here that the algorithm seems to think that you might like of mine. But until the next time, I'll holler at you. Take care of yourself.
Now that's a happy ending. Or is it? Because everything's over now, and all that's left is you and the infinite void.